Bala Sudhakar, working as a assistant professor in Department of Nautical Science. Today I am going to handle the topic fluid mechanics and classification of fluids. What is fluids? So fluid is a substance. So if you apply the stress on the fluid, it will elongate or it will flow. That is the fluid. So fluid is a, we can tell liquid and gas, both we can tell as a fluids. Next one is fluid mechanics. What is fluid mechanics? Fluid mechanics is the branch of science which deals with the behavior of the fluids under when it is in motion or it is in rest condition. That is the fluid mechanics. So fluid mechanics we can classify in the three categories. First one is fluid static, fluid kinematics, third one is fluid dynamics. So what is fluid static? If you are studying about the fluid, when the fluid is in static condition, stationary fluid, that is the fluid static. For example, if you are studying about the fluid in the overhead tank, that is the fluid static. So next one is fluid kinematics. What is fluid kinematics? If you are studying about the fluids, when the fluid is in motion, if we are not considering the pressure force, that is the fluid kinematics. Third category is fluid dynamics. When we are studying about the fluid is in motion, if we consider the pressure force of the fluid, that is the fluid dynamics. So next one is classification of the fluids. We can classify the fluids in 5 categories. First one is ideal fluids, real fluids, Newtonian fluid, non-Newtonian fluid, ideal plastic fluids. 5 category we can classify the fluids. First one is what is ideal fluid? The ideal fluid, the fluid which does not have the viscosity, that is the ideal fluid. So in the real world, there is no ideal fluids. So ideal fluid, all the fluids, it contain the viscosity value. So ideal fluid, only theoretical purpose only, we are studying the ideal fluids. Real fluid. So real fluid is the fluid which contain the viscosity property, that is the real fluid. For example, water, oil, kerosene, milk, this everything is the real fluid. Third category is Newtonian fluid. What is Newtonian fluid? So before going to Newtonian fluid, we will discuss about the Newton's law of viscosity. What it says, the Newton's law of viscosity says the shear stress of the fluid element layer is directly proportional to shear strain. That is the Newton's law of viscosity. Here, Newtonian fluid. What is Newtonian fluid? The fluid which obey the Newton's law of viscosity. That is the Newtonian fluid. That means, if you apply the stress on the fluid, viscosity value will not change. That is a Newtonian fluid. So example of Newtonian fluid, water, milk, gasoline, these are the examples of the Newtonian fluid. Next one is non-Newtonian fluid. What is non-Newtonian fluid? The fluid which does not obey the Newton's law of viscosity. That is non-Newtonian fluid. So that means if you apply the stress on the fluid, that fluid viscosity value will change, depends on the applied stress. That is the non-Newtonian fluid. For example, paint if you brushing, so the viscosity value will change, it will flow. Ketchup, if you are applying the forces, it will flow. That is the non-Newtonian fluid. So final category is ideal plastic fluid. What is ideal plastic fluid? In the ideal plastic fluid, the fluid is in solid state. The fluid totally is in solid state. If you apply the stress on the fluid, it will flow. That is the ideal plastic fluid. For example, toothpaste look like a solid. If you apply the force in the paste, it will flow. That is the ideal plastic fluid. Another mud look like a solid. If you apply the force on the mud, it will move, it will flow. So we have discussed 5 categories of the fluids. Thank you.